Assalamu alaikum. Hi everyone, my name is Laros Toil, teacher of English from Nasr High School, Bujdur, the Academy of Al-Ayoun, Saqi Al-Hamra. Today we are going to talk about giving and asking for advice, which is a lesson for the second year baccalaureate students. So let's start. Today's objective is the following: how to use expressions of giving and asking advice correctly. So this is our objective today. This is what we are going to learn today, okay? Okay, so before we start talking about the lesson, I have a question for you. I want to ask you, what do you think about the following picture? Okay, can you read for me? The best advice is silence is the best answer for all the questions, and smiling is the best reaction in all situations. What do you think about this? Do you agree? Do you disagree? Okay, what do you think? The best advice is silence and smiling all the time. What do you think? I don't know. Tell me, what do you think? Okay, good. So let's dive into it. So this is Ali, our friend Ali, okay? As you can see, he is sick, okay? So Ali is sick and he doesn't know what to do, okay? So what should he do, in your opinion? What do you think? Ali is sick and he doesn't know what to do. What do you think, in your opinion? Okay, so you can tell me, for example, Ali should see a doctor, for example. Someone else might say, Ali ought to go to the hospital, for example, again, okay? Or, I advise Ali to practice sports, okay? Or, my advice is to get some rest, okay? So all these examples are just examples of what? Of advice, okay? All of them just examples of advice. Now, if we want to agree on a definition of advice, what is the meaning of advice, okay, in your opinion? What is that? So, for example, I can say, he should see a doctor, or he should practice sport, or this or that. Okay, so what is that? It's an opinion. Very good. It's an opinion that you give to someone about how he should react or act in a particular situation. Okay, so advice is an opinion, okay, as you can see, an opinion that someone offers you about what you should do or how you should act in a particular situation. For example, Stephen gave me some good advice. Okay, so he told me what to do. Okay, so this is the definition or the meaning of advice. Okay, good. Let's move on. So when we talk about advice, you can either give advice or ask for advice. Okay, so give advice or seek advice. You can do one of them or both. Okay, it depends. So what does it mean to give advice? It means simply to give advice to someone, okay, who needs your advice. For example, I am in a situation in which I don't know what to do next. I don't know, okay? So I ask you, tell me your advice, okay? So you give me your advice. Or you can ask for advice. Seek advice means ask for advice, search for advice, okay? So seek advice, it means ask for advice from someone. You need advice yourself, so you ask for it. You seek advice. Good, okay? Now we have an example, okay? So this young Moroccan man, okay, he has a question. I'm scared of COVID-19, the coronavirus, okay? So he is scared of COVID-19 and he doesn't know what to do. Okay, good. So he says, I'm scared of COVID-19. What should I do? Okay, what should I do? Okay, and the answer is, okay, the answer from this lady, okay, my advice for you is to stay at home, which is, by the way, a good piece of advice. Okay, we all have to stay at home in this difficult time. Okay, so what should I do? My advice for you is to stay at home. Now, I want to ask you a question. Which one of them is asking for advice and which one of them is giving advice? Think about it, okay? Take your time. Which one of them is asking for advice and which one is giving advice, in your opinion? Okay? So this one, what should I do? As you can see, question mark, okay? Question mark. So this is asking, very good, excellent. It's asking for advice. And we have also giving advice, okay? So you ask for advice and the answer or the reply is giving advice. So what should I do? You should stay at home. Very good. Let's move on. Okay, now we have a conversation, okay? I want you to read with me, okay? Follow with me, and we are going to discuss it. Okay, Omar. We have Omar and Layla, okay? So I'm going to read. Omar, hey Layla, I've got a big problem. Can you give me some advice? Okay, tell me. Thanks a lot. Well, last day while I was doing an exam, I realized Ahmed was copying from my exam. Well, that is a big problem. Yes, I know, but what should I do? Okay, I think you should tell him you didn't like that at all. Okay, then he will say, just let me copy. I'm not hurting you. What is your advice in that case? Okay, in that case, if I were you, I would try to explain better. If he doesn't understand, you had better say to him, you will tell the teacher. Okay, so take your time, read, okay, try to understand and grasp this conversation between Omar and Layla, okay? Good. Now I want you to find the expressions, in your opinion, of asking for advice and of giving advice, in your opinion. Okay, can you find them for me? Okay, so for example, this one. Hi Layla, I've got a big problem. Can you give me some advice? In your opinion, this one is asking for advice or giving advice? What do you think? Question mark? It's asking, okay? It's seeking advice. Good. Can you find another one for me? You can pause the video and do it by yourself, okay? Can you do it? Let's move to this example. I think you should tell him, etc., okay? I think you should tell him. What about this one? Is it asking or giving, in your opinion? It's giving advice. Very good. Excellent. Okay, so just some examples of expressions, okay? You can find them in the following table, okay? So, I think you should is giving advice. If I were you, very good. If I were in your position, okay? If I were in this situation, I would do this or that, okay? Good. You had better, okay? You had better say to him this and that. And asking for advice, we have, can you give me some advice? Can you give me some advice, okay? What should I do, okay? And what is your advice in that case? Okay, very good. Now, let's talk about more expressions, okay? Because all of these are just examples, okay? So we need more examples to better understand the full picture, I would say. Okay, good. So here we have asking for advice, some expressions, and giving advice, expressing advice, which means giving advice. So let's start with asking for advice. Remember, asking for advice is the same as seeking advice. It's the same thing. You ask for advice, you seek advice, the same thing. Remember that, please. So, what can I do? Okay, you ask. What do you think I should do? For example, what do you think I should do to learn Spanish? I don't speak Spanish, and I would love to speak Spanish. So, what do you think I should do? Probably I should go to a language center. Maybe I should watch some YouTube videos. I don't know. Tell me your advice, okay? Good. What do you suggest? Okay? What would I do in this situation or that situation, okay? So all of them are examples. What do you advise me to do? What do you advise me to do? which means what is your advice for me? And giving advice, we have the first one, very simple, I advise you, okay? I advise you. And now pay attention to this because it's important. Here in the title, you have advice with C, okay? And now you have it with S. What is the difference? Why is that, in your opinion? So, very good. With C, when we have it as a noun, advice with C is a noun, okay? What is your advice for me? Advice with C because it's a noun. Here we have I advise you, he advised me, okay? It's the verb with S. Very good. I advise you, okay? Remember, keep it simple. I advise you, or you should, or if I were you, I would do this, or I would do that, okay? Why don't you? Why don't you do this? Why don't you do that, okay? Why? Okay, it's an opinion, it's suggestion, it's giving advice, okay? How about this? Okay, so remember, all of them are just expressions. You can be creative, you can be smart and use the language as you please, okay, to express giving and asking advice, okay? You can do that. What is important is, as long as you express the function, you can be creative. You can come up with your own examples or expressions because the language is flexible. What is important is the function itself, okay? Good. Now we have should, which is a modal verb, okay? Should, and yes, can you read? Ought to, which is a modal too, and had better. We can express giving advice by using modal verbs. And how can we do that? We do it by subject plus the modal plus verb bare infinitive. For example, you should do your homework. Okay, so modal plus verb bare infinitive. Or for example, you ought to do your homework, for example. Or you had better, etc. The same thing. All of them are modals. Okay, good. Here you have some examples. I should do my homework. You ought to manage your time. You had better play sport to keep fitness, okay? All of them just examples. Let's move on. Okay, now we have some practice. We want you to practice, okay? Okay, so here we have an example. I have a terrible headache. What should I do? Okay, in your opinion. You should see a doctor. You'd better have some rest, okay? Good. Now exercise, practice. What would you say in the following situations? Okay, good. Your friend, okay, this is the situation. Your friend, it's my best friend's birthday and I don't know what to bring him as a gift. Okay, so my friend, my best friend, today is his birthday and I don't know what to bring him as a gift. Okay, so can you advise me? Maybe a watch, maybe chocolate, maybe a book. Book is a great gift, okay? So you tell me, for example. So you give him a piece of advice, okay? Can you do that? You can say, for example, you should give him a book. For example, okay? You should give him a book. Or another expression, I advise you to bring him a watch. For example, okay, you can come up with your own example. Number 2, I have an English test exam next week, but I didn't understand some lessons, okay? For example, you didn't understand some lessons, or your friend, he didn't understand some lessons, and no, in this situation, it's you didn't understand, okay? Ask your friend for advice. So you didn't understand, and you have a test next week, so ask for your friend for advice. Ask him for his advice. So how can you do that? How can you ask for advice from your friend? You can say, for example, what is your advice for me? Very good. Or you can say, think, take your time. asking for advice. You, yourself, you need advice. How can you express that? What is your advice for me? What should I do? Okay, something like that, okay? Good. And the answer, give him a piece of advice. I advise you to work hard. I advise you to revise. I advise you, okay? Or you should do this. You had better revise your lessons. What else? Okay, if I were you, I would watch some videos on YouTube to learn and to improve my English, to better prepare for the exam. Example like that, okay? Good. Now we have some situations again, which I'm not going to answer. It's your turn right now. You have to answer them, okay? Take your time, think, and try to answer. This is practice for you, okay? Good. Let's see the examples. Give your advice about the following situation, okay? Situations, okay. Ikram, I still have problems with my English. So Ikram, she has problems with English, okay? How can you advise her? Think. Okay. Have you finished writing your example? Or at least thinking about your example? Okay, we move on. Khalid, I have my baccalaureate certificate, but I don't know what to do in the future. Okay, what is your advice for Khalid? What do you think? Okay, next, it's Layla, okay? I don't know where to spend my summer holidays. Okay, do you have some advice for Layla? Yes or no? Okay, good. And finally, Ali, I stay all night watching video games or watching anime or anything else, okay? For example, anime is kind of Japanese cartoon, I would say, okay? Good. Jihan, I am bored at home. Do you have some advice for Jihan? Okay, yes. Maybe watch Netflix, maybe read books, maybe do something, okay, in free time, okay? Can you do this exercise for me? Good, excellent. Now let's move on. Now remember, because advice, as I told you, with S is a verb. For example, I advise you to learn English. Advice with S is a verb. Now we have advice with C, okay, is a noun. My father gave me this piece of advice, okay, noun. Ought to is very similar to should, okay? They're almost the same, almost, okay? So you ought to stop smoking, you should stop smoking. It's almost the same thing, okay? They have almost the same meaning, okay? Next, you'd better is the short form of you had better, okay? It's just the short form, the abbreviation, okay? Good. So for example, you'd better see a doctor, you had better see the doctor, the same thing. And finally, advice is uncountable, which means it doesn't take the plural. We don't say one advice, two advices. That is not correct. It's one piece of advice, two pieces of advice. Okay, it doesn't take the plural. Very good, because it's uncountable. Okay, so finally, I have some questions for you, because your feedback matters. Okay, number one, things that you learned today. Can you name them? Can you mention them for me? Okay. Number two, things you found interesting. What are they? Finally, question or questions that you still have. Okay. Can you ask me your questions? If you still have any questions, you can send them to my email. You have it right here. Okay. This is my email. Send me your questions. You are welcome anytime, and you can share with me your feedback. Okay. So this is everything for seeking and giving advice. Thank you so much for your time. My name is Laros Etoil, and stay at home. Thank you so much.